The abolition of slavery in 1865 began a new era of Reconstruction in the United States. Though now free, African Americans still faced racism and segregation, for many of them did not even know how to be free among the whites. One man, Allensworth, had a different vision, a vision which would become the American dream. Allensworth was born into slavery in Louisville, Kentucky, April of 1842. He was the youngest of 13 children, and as time went by, his family was scattered all over the place, some escaping to the north, but most of them sold to the deep south. As a youth, Allen developed a big appetite for learning. He learned to read and write, but since it was forbidden for blacks to learn that much, he was eventually sent from plantation to plantation. At the age of 13 in 1855, he decided to run away because of the harsh treatment he endured. Unfortunately, he was caught and was sold multiple times until finally being bought by a horse racer, Fred Scruggs. Scruggs was delighted that Allensworth could read and write, so he used them to bet on his horse races. When the Civil War commenced, Allensworth continued with the horse races. One race in 1862 led him back to Louisville, where he reunited with one of his sisters. She told him that she had purchased her freedom in 1849. Allen then met with soldiers of the 44th Illinois Volunteer Infantry Regiment and told them about his dreams of freedom. He disguised himself within the infantry, escaped his master, and set off for war. While in the service in 1863, he joined the U.S. Navy, finishing the war in April 1865 with the rank of first-class petty officer. At the end of the war, he joined one of his brothers in St. Louis, and they ran 2 restaurants. At the same time, Allensworth completed his education at the Roger Williams University, obtaining a Master of Arts. In 1875, he was appointed a missionary. In 1877, he married Josephine Lavelle, an accomplished pianist and music teacher. In 1880, he became a Republican elector from Kentucky and a delegate to the Republican National Convention of 1880 and 1884. In 1886, Allensworth was appointed as a chaplain of the 24th Infantry, known as Buffalo Soldiers, participating in the Spanish-American War. By 1906, he retired with the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, the first African American with that rank. After his retirement, he traveled west, lecturing on the need for Afro-Americans to initiate programs for self-help so that they might become economically, socially, culturally, and politically self-sufficient. Seeing the condition of black people and the conditions they lived in, Allensworth was convinced that the only way for blacks to live with dignity, freedom, and free from discrimination laws was to build their own town. Allensworth, his family, and several acquaintances traveled north and settled about 40 miles north of Bakersfield, midway point between Los Angeles and San Francisco. They found the land to be very fertile, inexpensive, and with underground water tables, thus became the birth of Allensworth, California in 1908. The Tulare County Times recorded that within a year in 1909, 35 families lived in the new Allensworth town. The townspeople helped their community grow by building general stores, a hotel, various homes, and their pride and joy, a school for the children and a library. Since most of Allensworth's residents were former slaves, they had always been neglected the right for an education. A school would become essential to allow the future generation grow up with an education. The library was loaded with books for anyone who wanted to learn. Occupations for the people varied among farmers, storekeepers, carpenters, nurses, and many others. In its beginnings, the town of Allensworth depended on the railroad for trade, but around 1914, the Santa Fe Railroad Company built a spur line to a neighboring town, halting the trade to the town of Allensworth. This was due to the racial prejudice of the time. When trying to dispute it, officials argued that the name was too long to fit on signs or in the book of schedules. This was just the beginning of their troubles. Starting in 1910, the water taxes became a burden to the town, and they were told that they needed to upgrade the pumping machinery. By the time the town collected the money, it was too late. The soil had become too dry for the crops, and the final blow came in 1914. On September 13, Allensworth was set to speak at the Second Baptist Church in Monrovia, California. When he left the train station, he was struck by a speeding motorcyclist. Allensworth was pronounced dead the next morning. He was interred at Rosedale Cemetery on September 18, 1914. The community was devastated, for no one could replace Colonel Allensworth. The people needed the spiritual guidance that he possessed, that by 1920, the townspeople flocked into different directions, wherever they could find work. His wife, Josephine, left Allensworth in 1920 and returned to Los Angeles with their daughter. The town of Allensworth slowly became a camping ground. It was until the 1970s that the State Department of Parks and Recreation developed plans to restore the town into a historical landmark. Volunteers to this day host annual celebrations, reliving and keeping the dream of Colonel Allensworth alive. We must improve our social status. We must have social distinctions. We must draw the line between the refined and the unrefined. We hold too many false ideas and practices in social life that militate us against more than any other factor. All the laws against us are merely public opinion in legal forms.